And now, Lifestyles Unlimited presents the Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Over the next hour, we unfold your map to financial freedom. You'll learn how to retire through investing in single-family and multifamily real estate. You'll learn how to create cash flow and build wealth so you can have the time and money to live the lifestyle you want.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Andy Webb with Lifestyles Unlimited, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. And I am filling in again today for Al on Tell Al Tuesday. And if you've caught some of my prior shows, you know I'm out on the road. I'm still out on the road in the RV bunker. I'm coming to you today from Montrose, Colorado, the western side of the state, but I'm reaching all the way back from where I hail across to Dallas-Fort Worth today to talk with a very successful multifamily investor. We're going to hear what he's done over his time as a member at Lifestyles Unlimited, as both a passive and a lead investor. I want you to understand what both of those roles do in the multifamily sphere. So without further ado, I want to welcome to the program Gourav. I'm an hour behind you, just waking up, having my second cup of coffee, feeling great. And, you know, I had the opportunity to interview you back in, it was August of 2021, and we talked about a lot of stuff. And I remember we talked on that show about your coming retirement. You were still working, I think, part-time as a contractor in your capacity. Well, did it happen? Have you retired?
It did, Andy. I retired in late September, early October. I was working part-time most of 2021, but then I finally focused my effort on my multifamily investment starting October 2021, and that's what I've been doing since then.
Yeah, how's it feel?
It feels great. To be honest, it was kind of an adjustment period having worked in corporate for 17 years and not having to speak to someone every single day, going to work at least a few days a week was a little bit different. But what I've enjoyed a lot is just the flexibility and the family time, especially during the summer this year, having the kids, being home for summer vacation. I've really enjoyed the fact that I can, spend some time during the day and not in the morning and in the evenings.
Yeah. So 17 years in the corporate space. Tell us a little bit more about you and your wife, maybe your family, your background essentially before becoming a real estate investor.
Sure. So both my wife and I are from India originally. We came to the U.S. in the early 2000s. Megha, my wife, she got her Master's of Science from UT Arlington, and I got an MBA from UT Austin. My wife has and continues to have a career in IT, and I spent 17 years in management consulting across 4 different companies. And I travel hundreds of thousands of miles across the nation being a consultant. Something that was fun in the beginning, but it got really old, especially when we had kids. We have a 12-year-old twin, boy and girl, that we enjoy having, spending time with, and they both go to middle school.
Okay, very good. Yeah, the family becomes very important, doesn't it? I mean, yours are 12. You've met my 5-year-old. He was hanging off your feet at one of the Lifestyles Unlimited case studies in Dallas-Fort Worth, as I recall, as I remember a little bit with embarrassment, I suppose. But speaking of Lifestyles Unlimited, how did you find the organization and what compelled you to join?
Yeah, lifestyle is being a life changer in many aspects. Financial freedom also changes the time that you have. And, I found Lifestyles back in 2016 through a colleague of mine who I respected very well and who was a Lifestyles member. I knew nothing about real estate or multifamily, but it sounded something better than what I was doing in investments. And, I was keen to explore more. I went to one of the introductory meetings, became a member shortly after. And, as they say, everything since then has, been a good ride.
Yeah. Hey, I know your track record here. I've got an updated, real estate resume of sorts from since we last talked. It's been over a year. And you have a very good track record. We'll hear a little bit more about that a little bit later in the program. Now I know this partly from our past conversations. You went to the organization, to the seminars and whatnot, and we talk about investing in two things at Lifestyles Unlimited: single family houses and apartments. You didn't go the single family route. You went firmly in the multifamily route. What was what was it that you heard at the seminars, at the 2-day financial freedom seminar, that made you say, "Hey, this is the way we're going to do it. It's going to be apartments"? What was the driver there?
So the 2-day seminar, which I think was really, I think I would say it really changes your perspective and educates you on what real estate investments can be and has been. Focuses on both single family and multifamily, and I enjoyed learning about single family and multifamily. In 2016, Megha and I both had jobs and our kids were younger. I just didn't see myself spending a lot of time initially in single family, and I had exited stock market right when I joined Lifestyle, so I felt like I could jump into multifamily, and I had a little bit of money saved up that I could invest. So I just thought being a passive in multifamily fit my lifestyle at that point, which was pretty busy, versus trying to do single family, which might have taken more time than just being a passive.
Yeah, and if you have the capital, you said you exited the stock market, the 401k, whatever you might have been invested in. If you have that capital available and can go straight to multifamily, you can, as you know, we'll talk a little bit about your experience both as a passive and obviously as a syndicator, a lead investor. If you have that capital to really dive into those apartments, it's just economies of scale. It's much big. One house versus an apartment with 200, 300 units, two totally different levels in terms of scale. So it does make sense if you have the capital. If you don't, go the single family route. That's what I did. I'm joined by Gourav. He is an investor out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He's been a member, we heard, since 2016, a member at Lifestyles Unlimited. And we're going to hear about his experience as a multifamily investor. And Gourav, we just talked about the 2-day financial freedom seminar. That's where you go to day one and learn all about single family, and day two you come back and learn all about multifamily. You mentioned, I think you used the term mindset, and there's a lot of mindset shifting that goes on in those 2 days, because we go into this as part of the conventional wisdom path, right? Growing up, getting good grades, going to college, getting that corporate career. But we come out changed. What are some of the mindset shifts that you experienced as you sat through that 2-day?
Well, some of the shifts that I understood, one of the things was, the stability of real estate is, it's a lot underappreciated. A stock market goes up or down when someone sneezes or has a cough. Real estate is not that topsy-turvy or changes that frequently. So that was one of the biggest things that came out of me from changing my mindset. The other mindset that changed for me was I thought real estate was hard. I didn't know anything about it. It seemed like an alien world to me. But in that 2-day, I really could understand how this could be done, even by someone who hasn't had any experience in real estate. So it gave me confidence to say, you know what, I understand the numbers. I understand how one can do this, and I felt confident that I could do it. And that was really a shift in my mind to say, okay, I don't have to just depend on stocks to improve my wealth. There's this whole new world that has opened up to me that I feel I can actually do something with.
Yeah, and again, eye-opening to the listener. We're talking about our 2-day financial freedom seminar. That's part of the financial freedom program. If you want to learn more, go to givemetotalfreedom.com. That's a website dedicated to that financial freedom program and getting signed up for the 2-day. Again, givemetotalfreedom.com, and you can use the promo code SAVEBIG, that's all caps, written together, SAVEBIG, and that gives you a 2-year membership, very heavily discounted. You can go to that 2-day. You can do that online. Gaurav, we have a lot of listeners now across the nation. They may not be in Texas like you and I are. You and I, we went into the brick and mortar office there in Las Colinas and Irving between Dallas and Fort Worth. But for those that are outside of the state, this is done virtually as well, both on the weekends as well as across 4 weekday evenings. Great opportunity. So if you're listening now, you need to work on changing your mindset. Experience what Gourav did. Now, Gourav, speaking of experience, you have experienced both sides of the multifamily syndication equation. and that means both as a passive investor and as a lead investor. Why? We heard a little bit about the passive side. You went into that because you didn't have time. What made you shift gears and go from being a passive to becoming a lead?
So there was a few factors that led to that. One was I had invested passively for about a year before I decided I should start thinking about being a lead. So I had an opportunity to understand how passive multifamily investments work. How do people find properties? How do the numbers work? How to become a good, effective lead per se. And so I felt a little bit more confident that, okay, I understand this, and I'm liking what I hear. I like the job of being a lead. And then the second part was Lifestyle had a certification program that they started, back in 2017, and that made it so much more approachable and available to a lot of us who are not leads or who didn't know how to be a lead, to have the extensive education program and support that we could actually learn this from everybody else's experience who've already been a lead. So those two factors, having an interest, having some knowledge and experience, and then the fact that there was a program that would teach a lot of the things that one needs to do to become a good lead, made me feel really confident that that's what I could pursue.
Yeah, and you're talking about the lead certification program, and I've not gone that route, Gaurav. I'm a passive investor. What I've done instead is the passive certification route, which tells you as a potential lead, in my case, if I want to invest with you, hey, this guy's sophisticated. He's got the education. He's learned about apartment investing, at least from the passive side. So we have essentially two tracks of education for the lead and for the passive. And you used a phrase there, and I want to come back to this. You said the job of being a lead. And I want to be very clear here. For me as a passive, what do? I read your marketing documents. I get to know you as a lead investor, and that's about it. I put my money into the investment, perhaps, if I decide to do so. Tell us a little bit more about that job of being a lead. What does a lead do?
The lead runs a business, essentially. I mean, that's what it boils down to. A property is a business. You have investors who are investing money and are trusting you to do the right job to maximize the returns. You have employees who are people who are employed at the property, who are responsible for their job function. You have income, you have expenses, you have vendors, you have you have to deal sometimes with law enforcement, fire. Hopefully not a lot, but those things do happen as part of your ownership of a property, or can happen. So it's like running a business. You have to make sure financials are good, the employees are happy, work is getting done, people are getting paid, we are getting paid for the apartments we're renting out. So it's a full-time job to make sure that all the different parts of the business are running smoothly. So yes, to me it's a job. It's a fun job, but it is a job.
Yeah, you're in control, though. And I do like to make that very clear, because people approach the multifamily side and they have a decision to make. Do I want to be a passive and be very much hands-off? And a lot of people out there, on the other hand, they like to have the control. They want to run that project. And I love those people because they enabled me to be a passive investor, quite frankly. So they're out there willing to take on that job. Maybe it's to build capital. Maybe they've got other goals. We'll hear about your goals a little bit later in the show. But you're not alone, right? Who do you have by your side typically from Lifestyles Unlimited as you go into these new projects, Gaurav?
Well, we always say it's a team effort. And it's a cliche, but it's really true with Lifestyles. Lifestyles provides a number of support people as well as access to other vendors that help. So we have an operational consultant who helps us determine the operation side of the business. So hiring, what we need to do to improve certain things like occupancy, collections. And then you have mentors who are very experienced leads who have given their time to guide us make the right decision when it comes to the underwriting of a deal, or share their experience when they have run into similar issues or similar situations. So having that level of support from Lifestyles and also access to vendors through the vendor program really helps you make that team you need to actually acquire and run the property, even if you don't have a lot of experience.
Yeah, you wear a lot of hats, but you have a lot of helping hands. We're going to head into a quick break. When we come back, let's hear about a couple of the lead investments that you have managed as that project manager.
Got questions? Call Lifestyles Unlimited at 855-497-4335. The Real Estate Investor Radio Show continues next.
Stop waiting. Stop sitting around. Stop procrastinating. This is your time. Make it happen. Do it now. When's the best time? Now. People go, well, I don't know. It's going to crash. It's going to be better next year. I've got to listen to 4 more classes. I love guys come up to me all the time. I've been listening to you on the radio for 8 years now, right? I go, and you're not rich yet? Well, really, I'm thinking about joining next month. Do it now.
Learn the skills you need to retire with real estate in 5 years or less. Do it now. Register for the Lifestyles Unlimited free online workshop, lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com.
Welcome back to the show. You're listening to Andy Webb on Tell Al Tuesday, and I'm joined by Gourav. He is an investor out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, a multifamily investor, both as a passive, which is what I like to do, and as a lead investor. And we heard what exactly a lead does. They wear a lot of hats. It is a full-time job. We sometimes hear that called a syndicator if you're more broadly out in the multifamily world. At Lifestyles, we call them leads, general partner, promoter, perhaps. And Gourav, I was actually on a webinar you did for a recent property that you're working on. And speaking of team, I like how you guys you brought on your key principals that are participating in the loan, the key KPs. You brought on the mentors, and we got to see their point of view. I think that's a great way to approach that in very, very broad terms, because I know you haven't closed yet. Where are you investing next?
So we are big believers in Dallas-Fort Worth market, and Dallas-Fort Worth market is one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing metroplex in the nation. And housing is still in short supply, we feel like there's always opportunities here. So we always invested in Dallas-Fort Worth. This will be our 5th lead deal in Dallas-Fort Worth. It's in the Grand Prairie area, and it's about 300 units plus. I would say it's what we call the Class C plus property, which is typically the area that I have invested in. These are for, the working class, the people who make $40,000 to $80,000 annually. They need a place to live, and these are the kind of places that we invested. We improve it, and then we sell it or refi it for a return to our investors.
Yeah, Class C, just for the listener's sake, apartments are defined as Class A, B, C, and D. A being those new builds that we see going up everywhere around Texas. What's the state bird of Texas? The construction crane. They're still out there. B is somewhere in between. C is that workforce housing that we really like. Those aren't getting built. We go in and we renovate them, but they're not being built from the ground up, that affordable housing essentially. So we're able to reposition those. And you mentioned this one's over 300 units, your 5th deal as a syndicator, as a lead. Just looking at your track record here, we saw 58 units, 64, 130 and some change, 260 something now. And that seems to be the progression. You get in, you get your feet wet, and then you build that experience and grow, and we grow alongside you as investors. You mentioned Grand Prairie. I love that area. It's booming. I grew up in the mid-cities. You've invested there. The whole market, DFW, is just continues to be a great place to invest. We can't talk a lot about the coming one, but let's look backwards. Have you had any of your investments go full cycle?
Yes, our second investment that we bought in Irving was a 64-unit Class C investment that we bought in 2019, and we sold that investment in 2021.
And can you give us a little bit of info? How did that one go? What did you do to reposition it? What are we commonly doing as lead investors to reposition these properties?
Right. So there is a we bought that property because of its location. One of the big things I look for is location. Location makes a big difference on a property, just because it helps with leasing and just being able to have people who want to live there because they like to be near schools or near places of work. So that is in a very good location on MacArthur and Rochelle, if anybody knows DFW. It's a really, really busy cross street. So we like that. We repositioned it. One of the things that we did was the paint was fading, so we painted it in a color that people was inviting, was visible. We wanted to make sure we put new signage on the building. We replaced a lot of rotten wood. We fixed up the parking lot. We fixed up the swimming pool. We did a lot of interior upgrades. A lot of interiors had white appliances and older fixtures, those golden fixtures. Now we have upgraded them to newer fixtures with black appliances and forward flooring. So those are typical things that we would do as we were upgraded. And obviously, when we upgrade these units, they become more valuable or more attractive, and we can charge a little bit higher rent. So that is what we did. We spent about, I would say, $400,000 over the course of the hold that we had to do all this work. And then we sold it in about 2 years for a total return of 95% to our investors.
Hey, that's great. And I'm just looking at the notes here, you sold it 3 years early. So you go in with a business plan, a pro forma, we'll commonly call that. And if you're operating to pro forma or even better, hey, let's go ahead and check the market out, see if we can get this thing out the door. 95% return in 2 years. Gourav, thinking back to your days in the stock market, did you ever see that kind of return?
Well, I was a bad stock picker, so no.
Well, I think that goes for most of us in America. I don't know if you were actively trading or, in my case, I had the 401k. What do? You just set it and forget it. There's no activity there. 95% in 2 years? No, never. Good numbers. So what I'm hearing, you're going in 400K, you're doing some curb appeal. You're upgrading those units. Same thing I do as a single family investor. Again, just on a much more massive scale. And of course, Gourav, you're a lead investor, so you're not doing this by yourself. You're raising capital as a syndicator. Roughly how many investors did you have along for the ride on that one?
We had 34 investors for this one.
34. I'm going to add an adjective in there. 34 happy investors. I mean, 95% in 2 years. Any other favorite deals you want to talk about?
Well, let me talk to you about the deal that we bought in December 2021. That was one of our biggest, at that time, the biggest deal that we had. And it was an interesting time to buy a deal just because we are still in supply chain challenges, but those days was even worse. And I was just looking for something that was not a lot of deferred maintenance that had to be taken care of. Obviously, there is always a value add where we can do improvements and add value, but we didn't want to go and fight for stuff for rehab items that were not available. So we bought this 265 unit. The previous owner had pretty much spent $5 million replacing most of the big items. That was one of those properties that was interesting when we went into contract. And since they had just finished the rehab, the property was performing better and better every month. And then when we took over, we started to do even better once we started to take full advantage of the capability of that property. We actually were planning to do distributions in 6 months, but we started doing in 3. Just after our first quarter after close, we decided that the property was performing well enough with a high cash flow that we felt comfortable that we could do distribution. So that property certainly has been a quick turn from purchase to doing cash flow for our investors. So that to me is an interesting one. Certainly not a lot. There is work, but there is not a lot of deferred maintenance that we have to wait till our rents can improve or our occupancy can improve. So I like that property. I think that property is in a it's in a good location that I think has a lot of potential to become a very good location. So we are looking forward to seeing that happen over the course of the next few years.
So the plan is to hold for what, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think I would like to hold for 5 just because the property has so many new things, and whatever things that are not new, we're replacing. We're replacing the chiller, we're replacing the boilers, we're replacing a whole bunch of stuff. So since everything is going to be pretty much new, we felt like this is something we can keep for up to 5 years. And since it's cash flowing well for our investors, we think it's one of those situations where unless there is a amazing offer, that always happens, that can happen, we'll probably try to just keep it for 5 years.
Yeah, we talk about that at Lifestyles Unlimited all the time. Best product, best price. You're going in and fixing those things that may break in the next 3 to 5 years and then disposing of the asset before it gets to that point where they do ultimately start to wear and break and so on. That's great. Hey, and distributions, just for the listener's sake, that's the cash that you're paying out in apartments. That's on a quarterly basis, but that means I put my investment in. You're already seeing returns after 3 months. That's very, very fast. That's very, very fast. That's good news. I'm your host today, Andy Webb, filling in for Al on Tell Al Tuesday. If you have any questions for me, send me an email to askandy@luinc.com. Again, askandy@luinc.com. And Gourav, we were just talking in the prior segment. And for the listener, if you're just now tuning in, go to our website, lifestylesunlimited.com. The show will be archived there. You can catch all of our prior discussions. And in fact, Gourav, you did a show with me back in August 2021. That one's out there as well. So it's interesting to follow. I love having repeat investors on to follow their progression and see how they've grown in the course of a year or two or more. And we were just hearing about some of the lead investments, some of those properties you have taken control of as the project manager, as I like to call it, and how you're improving those. You did use a term in there. You said supply chain challenges. Let's talk just a little bit broadly about some of the other headwinds you might be experiencing, and what are some of the tailwinds, some of those things that are still giving you a positive push. What's going on at least in the Dallas-Fort Worth market right now?
Well, I'll give you an example. The property that we were just talking about before the break, we are in the process of purchasing chillers. We placed the order in February. I still don't have a delivery date, firm delivery date. So, that's 6 months, 7 months into it, and it's still not there. So those are some of the headwinds where, things that, it's not just about they are more expensive because of inflation. It's just they are not available, some things, as quickly as they used to be. And that makes for a challenging time when you're trying to implement your business plan, right? Because you have, I'm going to do this in the first quarter, I'm going to do this in the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, but you can't do that if you don't have supplies. So those are some of the challenges we face, although it has become lesser and lesser for the smaller equipment, like HVACs. They used to be in short supply, but I think they're coming back and they're more available. But on the tailwind side, the rent growth has been incredible in between 2020 and 2022. Although going forward, we are being a little bit more conservative based on where the economy might be heading. But still, even with that, we are continually finding opportunities to increase rents. We are finding ways to add services that we can charge residents for. And those continue to be tailwinds. Occupancy continues to stay strong, given how many people are moving to Dallas-Fort Worth. There's a lot of need for the housing the type of housing that we have. So those continue to be strong tailwinds, even though we have some, hopefully, somewhat temporary headwinds, although it has been more than a year. So one would say it's not temporary, but still, we're hoping that we'll see this subside in the near future.
Yeah, our crystal ball is not perfect, but I have to go back to an earlier segment where we talked about team. You mentioned the mentors. We've got very experienced lead investors like Gourav. Maybe they've done twice. I don't know. They have big, long track records, and you can go to them for help. They've seen a lot. So we've been around a while. We've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of challenges. Now, highest inflation in 40 years, that's something new perhaps. Supply chain challenges after COVID, hey, that's something new. But from everything I've seen that you, as a lead investor, and all the others out there at Lifestyles Unlimited, the way you guys are managing through this it's amazing. It really is. You guys do a great job. And part of that goes back to those mentors, those operations consultants by your sides, as well as the education. Are there Let's talk about the education. In fact, you mentioned the LEED certification program. Are there any other components that you've experienced that have really boosted you as an investor, whether as a lead or perhaps as a passive?
Well, we have monthly meetings of leads that has been absolutely amazing because I only know as much and I can learn from experience, but I'd rather learn from other people's experience. So I think some of our mentors call it mastermind, some of our mentors call it different, but we just call it a lead meeting where we just have a few topics or we just talk about the topic of the day, right? So that has been amazing. When we were in the pandemic and we had a lot of challenges as multifamily owners, that support group of lead investors and as well as the lifestyle leadership was amazing for us to navigate those challenging times. And now that we see some of the interest rates rising and some of those challenges coming up, we have that same group helping us navigate based on what they are doing on their properties or they are doing when they're underwriting deals. So that for me has been invaluable. The friendship network that I've built has been great. I can tap into people. I get calls. I call people. We help each other out. And that, since we don't compete against each other, it really brings out the experience of being part of this group.
Yeah, it's a great ecosystem, a very virtuous cycle or circle that just continues to improve everybody that participates. I've never had the opportunity, I'm not a lead investor, to sit in on one of those meetings, but I can only imagine. Here we've got multimillionaires that have built a tremendous track record through multifamily apartment investing. I can only imagine what kind of conversations you guys are having. I'd like to be a fly on the wall one of these days, but you're not just a lead investor, you're also a passive investor. Do you continue to invest passively, or are you now focused exclusively on the lead side?
No, I started building my wealth primarily from passive investment. And my first lead deal was back in 2018, so it was 2 years into being a passive investor. And a lot of the seeds that I sowed with those investments brought a lot of the wealth creation that helped me in my goal of retiring from corporate America. So I passively invest in at least 2 to 4 deals a year, and I probably have a lead deal a year or so. So for me, it continues to be a great avenue to put my money to work and find other leads that I can help invest with, and they could help grow my money. I'm also a KP, so that is a key principle that allows me to be a guarantor for people who don't have as much experience, to get the experience so they can get the loan or just be a sounding board for them based on what I have faced and I have learned from my journey. So I get a little bit of a chance to give back to younger or newer leads that are starting the program now.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a great term, giving back. That's what you're doing right now on the radio with us, giving back, sharing your experience with the audience. I know you've presented at case studies. We host those in the evenings. In Dallas, in all of our offices. You can attend those virtually online, by the way. If you go to LU as in Lifestyles Unlimited, lucasestudy.com, you can register there for any of those that we do nationally. So you've given back there. I know you've hosted one of your properties at the Wealth and Passive Income Expo that we had a couple years ago in Irving. By the way, that's going to be in Irving again in 2023. So you're constantly giving back. And also in your bio, it says something, since you left corporate America, you have headed down the path of giving back to the community as well. What are you doing in that capacity?
So one of my properties, the one that I bought in December, is next to a nonprofit called LVT Rise. It stands for Las Vegas Trail Rise. Las Vegas Trail is a street. And that area was developed as part of a workforce housing for a large company that has since changed in terms of how many people they employ. So that company has gone through a lot of change. So there is a private-public partnership to improve that area, and I'm on the advisory board of that. I just felt like that really resonated with me when I was thinking about how do I spend my time going forward after I retired, and I felt like this would be a good opportunity for me to do more than just provide good quality housing, is to try to be part of the solution. So we meet once a month. It's a great organization. They provide food, healthcare, library services, after-school services, senior activities. They're expanding. They help with housing. They're just an amazing organization that is trying to improve an area that in the last couple of decades has not seen a lot of investment. So I'm happy to be part of it. I enjoy being part of it. It makes me feel like I'm actually part of a solution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's wonderful to hear. And a lot of lead investors do. A lot of investors that are passives as well. We start to give back, and that ecosystem that I mentioned that is part of Lifestyles, well, it ripples outward and it benefits the broader community. So if you have a giving mentality to the listener right now, this is a great way to be able to give more, is to create your own wealth, to build your own platform, and then be able to give back. We've got about a minute or so to go. You used the term goal a moment ago. What are your goals going forward? Got any big ticket items on the future?
Well, I've achieved financial freedom, and I think Megha can probably also quit her corporate job, but she likes it too much. So I think right now my focus is threefold, I would say. My real goal, one is I want to spend more time with the family, either at home or on vacation, my extended family with my parents out in India, and I want to spend more time being a better lead. So I want to learn, always opportunity to learn, and I enjoy being that. And the third is, like we discussed, I just want to find ways to contribute to the community. Because once you reach financial freedom, you still have something to do. You still want something to do. And that has been an interesting journey for me to figure out. And I'm still trying to figure out, what do I want to do with the time beyond being a lead, beyond spending time with the family? What is a useful purpose, right? And that's an interesting place to be.
That's a wonderful place to be. And we are at the end of the program, and I got to thank you for coming on, Gourav. When we finally get done with our ramblings and get back to Texas, I look forward to seeing you at one of the case studies. And you used a great term, always learning. To the listener, always be learning. Again, I gave you a couple of websites. Go to givemetotalfreedom.com to learn about our financial freedom program. That's where we do our 2-day promo code Save Big. Get involved, get learning, and get going on your path to financial freedom.
The information and opinions you hear on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.